In an exclusive interview with Sky Sports, Ivan Toney refuses to rule out a move away from Brentford this month. Hi, good evening. Welcome along to the Transfer Show. Could today's interview put the Premier League's biggest clubs on high alert with just over 2 weeks to go now until the transfer window shuts? We'll discuss that shortly. Plus, Jordan Henderson is on the verge of a move to Ajax only 6 months after moving to Saudi Arabia. We ask just how damaging this is for the Saudi project. And there is live Africa Cup of Nations football beginning on Sky Sports Football right now as World Cup semi-finalists Morocco take on Tanzania. But we start with our exclusive interview with Ivan Toney, who has refused to rule out a move from Brentford, and it could come as early as this month. Toney's 8-month suspension for breaching the FA's betting rules has ended today, leaving him free to play for Thomas Frank's side again. But could he yet be on the move? This is what he's had to say.
Well, I don't know. You can never predict when's the right time to move elsewhere, but I mean, it's obvious that I'd like to play for a top club. Everybody wants to play for the top clubs, fighting for titles and these kind of things. So whether it's this January, the right time was to be, a club was to come in and pay the right money, who knows? But my main focus is doing what I do on the pitch and let the background work take care of itself.
Yeah, Ivan Toney speaking to Sky Sports early this afternoon. Michael Bridge and Tim Thornton are with me on the Transfer Show. Wow, what a fascinating interview. That's just a snippet of it. There's a lot more to come throughout the day. Michael, what do you make of what you heard there?
Might alarm Brentford slightly, because I know he's probably been a bit more committal in Brentford's in-house channel. But Ivan Toney's probably looking at it this way as well. He'll probably move in the summer. And why completely rule it now if things change? But it has to suit Brentford as well. It has to suit him as well. So I don't think I have to worry too much. We can tell he's just itching to get back and play. He is back now, and he can't wait. And of course, you know, he's had a lot of time to think, hasn't he? You know, that's been the painful thing for Ivan Toney as well. We know that he's been getting incredibly fit. We know he looks raring to go, but he's had time to think. He's had time to listen to what people have been saying about him as well. We know what a top striker he is. I won't read too much into it, because if we're not going to be talking about him in January, we'll certainly be talking about him in the summer.
Tim, we like it when we hear from players and managers and they're honest and they're open with us. And Ivan Toney is definitely that. But is it a surprise to hear a player speak so openly about his future?
I think it is in some ways, but he's made no secret of the fact that he wants to play for a top club. And I think all he's saying is that he's not in control of when that happens. It's out of his control. He'll focus very much on his football, but obviously we've got the Euros coming up in the summer. And if a club makes an offer for him, then we'll see what happens. But it's nice that he's come out and been so honest, but I don't think it's a huge surprise, although he could have come out and said, I'm going to stay at Brentford until the summer.
If a club makes an offer for him, the key phrase you mentioned there, can you see that happening? And who would be able to afford him, I guess, because he's going to command big money?
PSR. We've talked about it all throughout this window.
We've had to sing then.
But that's the problem. We know that a couple of clubs that would be interested, Chelsea and Arsenal, they're the two clubs that have been linked throughout this transfer window. But of course, can they do the deal from a financial perspective? Arsenal fans will tell you they're crying out for somebody like Ivan Toney. Mikel Arteta has focused on the players that he's got at the club. Interesting, at Chelsea today, David Ornstein from The Athletic is reporting that Armando Broja could be allowed to leave, or that Chelsea are open to letting him go in this window, although not contingent on a striker coming in. But I'm sure loads of clubs in the Premier League would like to sign him. Whether a deal can get done in this window remains to be seen.
And also from a Brentford perspective, they've waited 8 months to get him back in the team. Is there any merit in them letting him go this month, Michael?
The 16th. That's a worrying position. Now, they've been absolutely brilliant. Thomas Frank's done an absolutely brilliant job. But they've had a tough season so far. He acknowledged when I spoke to him a few weeks ago, you know, all the so-called bigger clubs we talk about with their injuries, they've had some real serious injuries as well. Rico Henry, they've had injuries all over. Thomas Frank is just looking forward to getting him back. He always answers our questions, whoever's there every week to speak to him. And he says the same thing every time. How many top strikers are there around? He's a £100 million player to us. And you can completely understand that. Relegation is absolutely unthinkable.
They've got some tough games coming up, by the way, as well. They play Manchester City home and away, Liverpool, Tottenham. Some of the games coming up are very difficult for them. Obviously, Forest next up, but they've got a sequence of games and that are difficult, and they're only 3 points above the drop zone.
And if we look at it value-wise as well, OK, 100 million. Is that going to happen in January? Probably not. I mean, look at everything at the moment. Clubs have been worried, haven't they? What would he command in the summer? We're all assuming at the moment, but if he does hit the ground running against Nottingham Forest, then he scores next week against Tottenham, he's still going to command a big transfer fee in the summer. And Brentford will hope that's when they finish 12th. And then they can move forward, and so can Ivan Toney. That's what they want in an ideal world.
We also don't know how he's going to perform. He's been out for a long time, so he comes back. If he hits the ground running and scores goals in the next couple of weeks, then obviously that could change the landscape again. But when you've been out for a long time, it might not happen just like that for him.
Yeah, a lot of questions about Ivan Toney. One thing's for sure, that interview today is going to get people talking about him, and we'll see him, of course, back in action on Saturday. Tim, Michael Fennell, thanks very much indeed. He's very much, of course, Ivan Toney, the poster boy at Brentford, isn't he? And have a look at this earlier on today. He was, there we are, he is back. He certainly is, isn't he? Ivan Toney back in a Brentford shirt and back in action at the weekend. And a reminder that you can see the match that could and should mark his return. How Brentford fans have waited for this day. It's live on Sky Sports on Saturday. It's at home to Nottingham Forest. Coverage starts at 5. Kickoff is at 5:30. Sky Sports Premier League and main event. From Ivan Toney to Jordan Henderson, who is on the verge of a move to Ajax after Al Ettifaq agreed to terminate his contract in Saudi Arabia. He could even make his debut for them as soon as Sunday this weekend. Our chief reporter, Kaveh Solokon, as you can see, is with me in the studio to break this potential move down. Kaveh, good evening to you. We know he only went to Saudi Arabia and Al Ettifaq went in the summer, saying he wanted to help grow the sport. It was a project he saw it as. 6 months later, he's leaving Saudi Arabia. Is this a rather embarrassing climb down for Henderson?
I mean, it depends how you look at it. I think, a lot of people will be saying he's coming back with his tail between his legs. He should never have gone there in the first place. He was accused of being a hypocrite. He was accused of only going there for the money. He was accused of letting down the LGBTQ plus community. I think, we've got to be a bit careful before we criticise people because we don't know the full story. The bottom line is that last summer, Jordan Henderson thought the best decision for him and his family was for him to move to Saudi Arabia. Now, fast forward 6 months later, he thinks the best decision for him is to leave Saudi Arabia and come back to Europe. Obviously, it's been a hugely controversial move. We all know it hasn't worked out. But I think as far as he's concerned, he will be happy that his Saudi Arabian adventure is over and he's back playing at a high level in European football, because I think one of the real important things for him is to keep his place in the England squad for the Euros this summer.
And you're absolutely right to say we don't know what's gone on behind closed doors. We don't know his situation, how the club feel about it. But, on the face of it, Al Ettifaq losing a player that they signed with such publicity 6 months ago, do we know if there are any sort of hard feelings from their perspective?
Well, what I'm being told today is that there are no hard feelings. I think, Al Ettifaq obviously are disappointed. I think the Saudi Pro League, the Saudi Arabian Football Federation will be disappointed about the way this has played out. But Jordan Henderson is not the only foreign player playing in Saudi Arabia. They've got lots of foreign players. But as far as he was concerned, once he looked them in the eye and said, look, I'm not happy here, I want to leave, I think they realised the writing was on the wall and they tried to facilitate a move for him as quickly as possible. And I think the terms of his contract termination mean that actually Al Ettifaq are not going to be losing too much money on the original deal. And also, him leaving now gives them a little bit of time to make a move in the transfer market.
We know how much they're trying to grow the game in Saudi Arabia. They're bringing in all these stars and paying them a lot of money to play out there. Someone like Jordan Henderson, big name in the Premier League, who they signed, leaving after 6 months. Is this the first sign of potential cracks in the whole Saudi project?
I think that's a very good question. That's something that people will be talking about. I think, in a way, though, this is an isolated case because the Saudi Pro League is already the #1 league in Asia. Obviously, the people running the league want to make it one of the top leagues in the world. And if you look at the numbers, for instance, the attendances, a lot has been made of the fact that Jordan Henderson, I think his club, the average attendance there is about 7,000. One game I think he played in, there was only about 600-700 people there. But attendances are growing in the Saudi Pro League. I think they're up 24% on last season. The average attendance is about 8,000. Some games you get 20, 30, 40, 50,000 people at the games as well. So it is a mixed picture. Obviously, you know, when you sign so many players, there are going to be some players who are unhappy and moves don't work out and they want to leave. But I think on the whole, the people behind the Saudi Pro League are still pretty pleased with the way everything's gone. And I think one thing that is sometimes overlooked, I was in Saudi Arabia last month, and some of the players you speak to, especially the Muslim players, will say to you, look, we love living in Saudi Arabia. It's very important for us to be living and working in Saudi Arabia, which is the birthplace of Islam. So it's a mixed picture. Some players are happy, some players are not happy. I think that happens in leagues all over the world.
It looks like he is on his way. Thanks very much indeed for now, Carve Solokol. Dutch football journalist Marcel van der Kraan says the excitement around Henderson's arrival in Amsterdam is palpable and he is set to become the highest paid player in Eredivisie history.
Wages-wise, anyway, they're going to have to pay the biggest amount they've ever paid to a player at Ajax. I cannot remember a player to be paid more than £5 million in the history in Holland at Ajax, and that is what will happen. Of course, people have won the Champions League at Ajax, but you don't often see players joining as big as Henderson coming to Holland and to Ajax at the size of Henderson. No, that's what we don't normally expect to see.
Yeah, we will keep you updated on his movements in the next few days. And up next, we're going to hear from Celtic's first January signing, Nicholas Kuhn, who has joined on a 5.5-year deal. He's coming up after the break. the new Celtic signing. Nicholas Kuhn is hoping to use his experience at huge clubs like Ajax and Bayern Munich to help him perform with distinction. Now he's in Scotland. Kuhn held a news conference today and he spoke about some of his experiences.
Of course, at Ajax, I played with the whole squad, which reached the half final of the Champions League. I trained the whole year with the first team, and at Bayern, of course, I played with players like Lewandowski, Kimmich, and all the guys you know from Bayern.
Let's get some more on Celtic's new signing. We can go live to Mark Benstead, who was in that news conference for us earlier on. Good afternoon to you, Mark. I mean, he's played with some big clubs, some big players, therefore. What do you think he's going to bring to Celtic, though?
Evening, Judge. He arrives with that fabulous pedigree after spending time at those huge European institutions, if you want to call them that, beyond just football clubs. In terms of his skill set, from speaking to him, I think he brings things that will really complement Celtic's forward line. He says he generally played for Rapid Vienna, his last club, off the right wing. He can play as a second striker, as a number 10 if needed. But I think it will be out wide where he adds something really to Celtic just now. They've had Lewis Palmer, who's made a big impression since joining in the summer window. He's got 7 goals so far. He's been good on the ball, good quality, a goal threat as I touched on. We've got Dejan Maeda, who albeit is away at the Asia Cup at the moment, has offered great endeavour and industry on the flank as well. But after that, it's sort of been diminishing returns with some of the others. James Forrest, great servant to the club, has sort of tailed off. Marco Tilio hasn't delivered since joining Celtic either. So they need other additions in the wide players. I think that's where he'll bring something. He says he likes to create, he brings pace, which will be crucial. He likes to cross the ball, he can cut inside as well. He said he likes to create chances. So I think that will be something that really adds to the forward line at Celtic, and I think it's something that the Celtic supporters are keen to see as we go into the second half of the season. He said it's been a stressful week with all the hassles of moving and medicals and what have you, but he did train with his teammates today, and he is eligible, I'm told, and registered in time to play this weekend if required. His first game for Celtic could be in the Scottish Cup here at home against Highland League side Buckie Thistle.
Yeah, Celtic fans no doubt happy to see a new face through the door. What else is happening in Scotland? What might yet happen, Mark?
I think we'll see more business here, potentially on the left-hand side of the team. Left-back is an area where Celtic are short of options. I think they might look to try and do something there. That's also an area of the team that's concerning Philip Clement across Glasgow. Speaking to him last night, he said, look, they need to resolve what's happening with their left-backs. They've got Borna Barisic, who's in the final 6 months of his contract. They've got Ridvan Yilmaz, who's under a longer contract, but is attracting attention elsewhere. So there's a bit of unsettlement around both of them, and they need to try and make sure that moving forward they can't be left with just one left back. So they might need to bring in cover there first and foremost. There is also an appetite to do more business beyond what they've done already. Fabio Silva's their only addition this window, joined on loan from Wolves. Part of that could be a move for Lawrence Shankland. There is still an interest in the Hearts captain, 19 goals this season for club and country, but they haven't yet moved on that as they ponder him and other options. But yeah, I think there'll be business done at both of the Glasgow clubs and elsewhere as well. One of Lawrence Shankland's Hearts teammates could be on the move. Andy Halliday given permission earlier this week to discuss a move to Motherwell. He's in the final 6 months of his contract, wants to play more regularly. Motherwell need cover in midfield after Callum Slattery picked up a season-ending knee injury as well. So I think there'll be business with that one. That seems like a move that makes sense for all parties. And I think there'll be quite a few things that happen in Scotland between now and the end of the transfer window.
Mark Benstead, live at Celtic Park. Thanks very much. Let's finish this transfer show. We're here again at 7. Don't forget a whole hour of more transfer news. But let's bring you a few of the lines today. Michael, I'll start with you. Tim's here as well. Brentford, firstly, close to signing a Tottenham defender.
Yeah, I think he's just waiting for official confirmation now, Jules. Sergio Reguilon expected to join Brentford on loan from Tottenham until the end of the season. Now, this is going to be a straight loan, no options or obligations. This is just a straight loan. He doesn't have a future at Tottenham as it stands. Manchester United sent him back at the start of January. And, of course, Brentford are looking for an experienced left wing-back who can bomb down those channels on the left-hand side after the injury to Rico Henry. So it does seem like a very sensible move for all parties.
We've seen a couple of players coming in, but in terms of more potential outgoings, I guess Postecoglou is trying to put his stamp on this squad. Could we see any more go?
Yeah, I mean, few have come in, but a few have actually gone out. You know, Hugo Lloris, Eric Dyer. Pierre-Emile Højbjerg is the name we get asked about every day. And look, there is interest from Italian clubs, a number of sides in Serie A, in particular Napoli. But look, that's him there at Old Trafford. He played the 90 minutes. Papi Sarr and Yves Bissouma are playing in the African Cup of Nations at the moment. So, Jules, I think that could be a on the final day kind of move if it were to happen in January. Also, waiting to hear on news when Japhet Tanganga expected to come back from a loan in Augsburg in Germany, potentially going straight back out on loan. More on that as we get it.
Just finally on Spurs, I mean, you think of this window, it's been quiet for the Premier League side. Spurs are the one team that seem to have been doing a bit of business. Is that it for them, or could there be more incoming?
Never say never with Tottenham, because if something does come up and maybe a youngster or a player who might be available now and it does work for them, then you'd never rule it out. But I have to say, you know, I don't know if all Spurs fans would agree with me here, but if the window's shut tomorrow, they're probably going to be happy. They've signed the top-class defender that Ange Postecoglou wanted. They've got a bonus, which I was told, to cover Heung-min Son. But never say never with Tottenham. Never.
OK, hold you to that, Michael. Thank you. Let's bring Tim in, because there's some interest, fair bit of interest in a Nottingham Forest midfielder, apparently.
Yeah, Orel Mangala. We told you earlier on in the window that there was interest from Juventus and Napoli. We understand now that the French club Rennes are showing interest in him. They're prepared to sign him on an initial loan with an obligation to buy. The fee will be £21.5 million, around about 25 million euros.
OK, so he could be on the move, and an exit at Manchester United as well to tell us about, Tim.
Yeah, Alvaro Fernandez, he's joined Benfica on a season-long loan. He spent the first part of the season playing in La Liga. It's an on loan with an option to buy depending on appearances. He's still a very young player, still only 20. It'd be interesting to see how he gets on with them.
News as well from Luton, who've made a signing, but he's not hanging around.
He's not. They've signed Tom Holmes, again, a young player, a young defender, very much one for the future, but they've immediately loaned him back to Reading. So they've signed him from Reading, loaned him back to Reading. They've been tracking him for a while, actually. They spoke to him in the summer, but the deal has finally gone through. Very much one in the long-term plans for Luton, but in the short term, they wanted to play games at Reading.
OK, that's what's happening at the moment, and I think it's worth just finishing off with our top story. We brought you that interview at the top of the hour, at the top of the transfer show, with Ivan Toney, who's been speaking to Sky Sports. He's been here at the studios today, hasn't he? Ahead of his return to action with Brentford at the weekend. And he said, Michael, didn't he, in that interview, that he wants to play for a top club one day, and he certainly didn't rule out leaving in this window. We discussed it half an hour or so ago. What do you think is most likely? Is he going to still be there come 11 p.m. on the 1st of Feb?
It's leaning towards that, Jules, because in terms of what Brentford are looking for, it has to suit Brentford. It's as simple as that. He also says about how much he loves Thomas Frank, how much he loves Brentford. We have to factor that in as well. Brentford are currently 16th. They're not 9th. They're not comfortable. They're not 20 points clear of relegation. It's unthinkable for Brentford to get relegated. But looking at the table, it's still possible. So it would have to be an astronomical bid. And like we've said for the last couple of days, clubs are tightening their belts and purse strings at the moment. So it is a wait and see, because after what he's just said, it would surprise me, though, Jules.
But if someone like Chelsea or Arsenal could prize him out and could find the money to do it, it would be a huge signing, wouldn't it, Tim?
It would, and it could have a knock-on effect for the transfer market as well, which has been fairly quiet so far. We've got Toney, we've got Calvin Phillips, another big player in the England squad as well. A couple of deals to watch over the course of the next couple of weeks, because they will be both high-profile moves if they happen. But certainly there'll be a lot of clubs looking at that situation, and we expect him to move at some point. Will it be now? Will it be in the summer?
Yeah, and of course, England is a big part of that, isn't it? And he spoke in that interview with Patrick Davison about his England ambitions, and as Tim rightly says there, Calvin Phillips, another one we're focusing on with the Euros in mind as well. So much more to come on him. Michael and Tim will be back, I'm pleased to say, in our hour-long transfer show at 7 o'clock, and they'll be joined by Clinton Morrison, you raise your eyebrows. He's had plenty of opinions on Ivan Toney throughout this transfer window. We'll see what he has to say after that interview with Ivan Toney. More on our exclusive coming up a little bit later.